touching on Iran and how the U.S. is, handling its relations with Iran. They decided to arrest a Iranian professor there in the U.S. and the Department of Justice is accusing him of acting as an unregistered agent for Iran. And what's interesting about this is that the United States has this thing called the Foreign Agents Registration Act. When countries like Russia or China create laws exactly like this, they are told that it's a violation of human rights, and they're told that by fake human rights organizations funded and directed by the U.S. and special interests in the U.S. I'm talking about Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and all the local fake human rights groups funded through the National Endowment for Democracy, U.S. government funding, in other words. And what's ironic about that is a lot of these NED organizations do the exact same thing. They're taking U.S. government money, and oftentimes people in the country that they're targeting don't even know that they're being funded by the U.S. government because they don't disclose it. There's no transparency. They never talk about it. When you ask them about it, even when you show them evidence of it, they will try to deny it for as long as possible. So I just thought that this was interesting. They claim that this professor was paid by the Iranian government, that he had health insurance, that he was in contact with them, and that he was getting talking points from the Iranian government. So how is that any different than any of the fronts that the U.S. is funding in any of the countries that it's targeting for regime change? How is this any different? Only this is an Iranian man in the U.S., so it's not like he's an American pretending to be pro-Iranian on his own. He's Iranian. Of course, he's going to have sympathies for his own nation. They claim, the Iranian government claims that this was all done openly and transparently. I don't know if he was actually registered with the Foreign Agents Registration Act or not. It's hard to tell because at this point the U.S. is just doing whatever it wants, and it uses laws. Sometimes the laws are applicable, sometimes they're not, and they just do it anyway. This is the Department of Justice website itself, and it said, defendant lobbied U.S. officials, published books and articles advancing Iranian viewpoints while secretly employed by the Iranian mission to the United Nations. That's interesting. So can we here in Thailand, can the Thai government start digging into some of these protest leaders, and if they find any connection at all to the U.S., that they were in contact with the U.S., receiving money from the U.S., acting as foreign agents for the United States government, can they get arrested? Can they go to jail? Does Thailand even have an equivalent of the Foreign Agents Registration Act? And if not, why not? So I thought this was really interesting because it seems like the U.S. does not tolerate foreign interference in its own internal political affairs. Although, I have to be honest, I don't see anywhere in this complaint where this Iranian man, this professor, was actually meddling in America's internal political affairs. He seems to have been focused on U.S.-Iranian ties or relations or lack thereof. And you can't really blame him for that, considering his country is right in the middle of Iraq and Afghanistan, and that both of these nations have been utterly decimated and for 20 years occupied by U.S. troops illegally. So he probably has a little bit of concern about his country being next. So if he, if there was this law and he knew he was supposed to register and he didn't, I guess he was doing that at his own risk. I guess if you're an Iranian speaking up for your own country in the United States, you're obviously a target. If the U.S. will murder a general leaving the Iraqi airport, in Baghdad, just assassinating him just right there out in the open, I guess you're really not safe no matter who you are or where you are. Yeah, and if you're in the United States, I think you should prepare for that eventuality that the US is going to target you like this. I'm going to keep an eye on this. I would like to see what happens to him and what kind of charge he gets. I'd also like to use this example to show people here in Thailand who are wondering what they can do about US interference here in Thailand. I think you can look at the US's own laws, adopt them, and enforce them here in Thailand. And then what is the United States going to say? What is Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International going to say? Only the US is allowed to have laws like that to protect themselves from foreign interference? Thailand's not allowed to have those protections? Is that what they're going to say? Or are they going to have to speak up and admit that, oh, the US is wrong for doing that and Thailand is wrong for following their example? We keep hearing about international norms from the Thai opposition here, the US-backed opposition here in Thailand. Likes to talk about international norms all the time. They like to pretend that the United States is the only country allowed to set those norms. And so here is a norm that the United States has set to crack down on what they call foreign agents. So everyone in Thailand taking money from the National Endowment for Democracy or George Soros's Open Society or USAID or the Henrik Bowles Foundation or any of these foreign government or corporate foundations, anyone taking this money, are they also foreign agents open to prosecution under Thai law, or should Thailand create laws so that they can prosecute people like this? Just a thought. It's an interesting development. I hope that this professor can get through this, and maybe he should go back to Iran. I don't think I think it's clear the U.S. is not interested in having any sort of constructive ties with Iran. And I think him, if he did go and try to lobby anyone in Congress, he was wasting his time, because him and even the entire Iranian government has no influence over Congress, because you have to remember, Congress is already bought off by the largest corporations and financial institutions on earth in human history. Nobody else has a chance of influencing that even slightly. So that was probably poor judgment on his part to have done that, to have tried to do that. But you have to understand, a lot of people, not just Americans, a lot of people all around the world, even people being targeted by U.S. aggression, kind of buy into that there is some sort of political process in the U.S., some sort of democratic process, some sort of process where they listen to people. And it's just not true. It's corporations running foreign and domestic policy, and the people in Washington are there to rubber stamp. They're not there to listen to anybody except the lobbyists with the big bags of money, not the little bags of money that come into Washington and tell them what their policy and their agenda is going to be. So I'm going to leave the video there for now. I'm going to try to keep an eye on this. Again, I get a lot of these tips from my readers, and I really greatly appreciate that. I also really appreciate my Patreon patrons who make these videos possible every day. Thank you so much for your support. Please like and share the video if you thought it was interesting. Think about subscribing to my channel. It's free to do and it helps the channel grow. Check the video description for the links that I used as references, and also for ways to help support my work if you want to. And I really greatly appreciate that. And to everyone everywhere helping me in every way, thank you so much. I couldn't do this without your support. And as always, thank you for watching.